High School Musical premiered on January 20th, 2006, a part of the Gotta Sing, Gotta Dance Week on Disney Channel.
Starting Monday, you gotta raise your voice, gotta strut your stuff, and gotta break a leg.
Warm up your dancing feet.
Kick up your heels for Gotta Sing, Gotta Dance Week.
Let the girls sing.
A week-long sing-along of all your favorite Disney Channel original shows and movies,
She delicious.
including new episodes of That's So Raven and The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
The words, the music, the dancing.
Gotta Sing, Gotta Dance Week comes to a crescendo with the world television premiere of the newest Disney Channel original movie, High School Musical.
This is only gonna happen if we all work together.
Gotta Sing, Gotta Dance Week. You gotta watch it. Starting Monday at 1:12 Central on Disney Channel.
It was just revealed that Season 4 of High School Musical, the musical, the series, will have their musical be High School Musical 3, with their school being the location for a High School Musical reunion. Thus, this is the perfect time to talk about the final installment, High School Musical 3. I have vivid memories watching this movie in theaters, and I was very young at the time, not fully understanding the gravity of the franchise ending. That all changed when I watched the movie the day before my high school graduation. At the final number, I was wiping away tears, realizing that my life was changing in a way that I could never go back to. So that's what today's video is all about, High School Musical 3. The first High School Musical broke the DCOM record for largest premiere on the network. In Variety's 15-year reflection on the first film, High School Musical could have been a bit different. Few details were changed from the original script. For the first and only time in Bar Zucchini's career, executives greenlit the first draft. One request from Bar Zucchini, however, was aging up the would-be young stars. Disney wanted the film set in middle school. It's not that Middle School Musical didn't have the same ring. Rather, Bar Zucchini offered audiences around the age of his preteen daughter want to look down the road, not where they're at today. It was an international success, with numerous foreign adaptations, stage productions, and a concert tour. Adding all the merchandise, it culminated in the franchise generating around $4 billion in sales. High School Musical is a modern Romeo and Juliet, and shares similarities with another musical, Grease. The story follows Troy Bolton, the star basketball player, and Gabriela Montez, the new girl, who meet on New Year's Eve on winter vacation while singing karaoke together. Gabriella ends up moving to East High, Troy's school, to begin the semester. The two try out for their school musicale, which leads to brother-sister duo Sharpay and Ryan Evans, annoyed that they have competition for the lead and judgment from the rest of the school with not staying within their social cliques. In reference to High School Musical, the traditional boy gets the girl musical, it has their own spin. Variety writes, Kenny juxtaposes the expected and the unexpected. The storyline you expect with the visuals you don't expect, Marsh says. He surprises people, and it's really hard to surprise viewers. What really defines High School Musical is that it has one foot in the reality of high school and teenagers and angst, and one foot in the fantasy of a musical. That's the straddle that Kenny created. The two leads, Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens, catapulted into teen stardom. To round out the main cast, Corbin Bleu played the basketball-loving Chad, Monique Coleman was the ambitious Taylor McKessie, and Ashley Tisdale and Lucas Grabeel played Sharpay and Ryan Evans. The first film's success greenlit a sequel, High School Musical 2. When the final film, High School Musical 3, came along, it was the closing of a chapter, the end of the trilogy. High School Musical 3 was originally titled Haunted High School Musical, but it was changed to focus on senior year. Production started on May 3, 2008 in Salt Lake City and lasted 40 days. There was an increase in the budget for the film to $11 million. It was the only film in the trilogy to premiere in theaters and made almost $253 million at the box office. High School Musical 3 is their final semester of high school, with the group trying to make their mark before they go their separate ways. Troy is conflicted about where he wants to go to college, while his friends seem more set on their future. This film elevates what we've seen in the previous two films, with the songs and choreography taking it up a notch. Kenny Ortega was the director of the trilogy. He was inspired by Gene Kelly, watching his movies as a kid, even getting the chance to direct him in 1980's Xanadu. NPR writes, He mentored me, and when the movie was over, he continued to, Ortega recalls. He would invite me to his home, and we would look at his films together, and he would talk to me about how he designed choreography for the camera, which was the greatest education I had received up until that point. Because of Kelly, Kenny Ortega experimented with how dancing was portrayed in his films, playing with angles, heights, and space. He was experienced before coming to High School Musical, with choreographing Dirty Dancing and the Material Girl music video, to name a few. In High School Musical 3, Ortega references classic Hollywood movie musicals as a way to introduce these films to a younger audience. Movie musicals have been around for almost 100 years. From the Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers collaborations to popular Broadway musicals being adapted, musicals have shown that they're here to stay. A big part of movie musicals is the final number. The final musical number concludes the performance, or in this case, the film, hopefully in a way that sticks in the audience's minds for years to come. For example, the first High School Musical concludes with "We're All in This Together." This song is arguably the most recognizable and popular song of the franchise, with it being referenced in some way in all three films. In music and levels of narration in film, Guido Held writes, "For obvious reasons, musicals normally sport a grand number towards the end. In these sequences, theatricality beyond what is normal, even in musicals, reigns supreme, and the film still seems to aspire to the condition of the Broadway stage." High School Musical 3 was not intended to end the film franchise. The film had cast 3 new characters, and at the time there was buzz about High School Musical 4 with these characters possibly taking up the mantle. As a result, the film was establishing a new story that never came to be. There was eventually High School Musical spin-offs with Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure in 2011, Madison High, an unsold Disney Channel pilot with Allison Reed, and High School Musical, the series premiering in 2019. High School Musical 3 begins differently than the ones previously. It starts with a close-up of Troy Bolton shaking his hair in the middle of a basketball game. The first 2 High School Musicals set up their locations, with the first film having their first shot be the ski lodge, and the second film had an establishing shot of East High. The first 2 films have a more relaxed opening, giving us time until we get into the chaos, whether that be the New Year's Eve party or the clock winding down in Miss Jarvis's classroom. The camera goes to the digital clock, which is winding down in the half. Clocks are reappearing in High School Musical films, especially through the theme of time winding down. The first High School Musical has the countdown to midnight and the clock ticking to begin summer in High School Musical 2. Clocks are a reminder of the future approaching and how much time flies. In the first High School Musical, the clock stops working because they lose power, and so the consistency of time is broken. Time is frozen at the basketball game, frozen at the Scholastic Decathlon, which leads to them going to the auditorium. In High School Musical 3, time seems to slow down. However, it quickens back up to reflect the pace of a basketball game. There's also how Troy looks at a make-believe watch in every film. So Troy is constantly aware of time slipping away. In the basketball game, the half ends with the Wildcats down by 20. The song begins with chanting 16. 16 minutes till Troy's high school career is over. Now or Never makes me think of the second number in High School Musical, Get Your Head in the Game. However, this song revolves around the high tension in a basketball game instead of practice.
Filming Now or Never was completely surreal for me. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced in my entire life.
It's not really about the dancing in this number. It's a full-on game that has a rhythm to it and it has a movement with the music and a connection with the music.
We were playing against a real team. We had real plays set up. And a lot of the basketball you see was just us playing. Nothing was rehearsed. We were just playing basketball.
With Now or Never, the climax is when the panels flip around to have paw prints across the student section. Gabriella emerges and the section seems to pay homage to West Side Story. She pumps them up and the song ends with them winning the basketball game. The first musical number, along with the remainder of the film, hold a lot of references to the past 2 films, mostly the first with its similar structure. Some references include the chase scene with Troy and Chad taking the freshman's clothes. This has them running around, going to the same places that Troy went to when Chad was trying to follow him during free period in the first film. Next, the homeroom look. In every film, Troy turns around to look at Gabriella, which is very cute. The party after the game reminds me of the celebration after the championship game in the first High School Musical, with Gabriella and Troy trying to embrace and being led away by others. Funny how in the first film, Gabriella comes from behind, the third movie, Troy comes from behind. Troy and Gabriella go to the treehouse for privacy, and it's interesting how trees are a place of solace for Troy. He was in a tree in the first High School Musical during detention, climbing a tree to see Gabriella at her house, and in High School Musical 3, he's up in a tree when he visits Gabriella at Stanford. Trees could demonstrate the growth he experienced in his life, as the treehouse was a place he grew up in. Trees also allow him to escape his life on ground and give him clarity. Once we get to East High, Sharpay's entrance is similar to hers in the first movie, being the spectacle at school. However, this time she's walking by herself without her brother. It is a longer scene, and there is this added touch of playing fabulous. Ryan and Sharpay aren't attached in the same way they were in the first film, Ryan becoming more of his own person, a continuity from the sequel. It's funny how Miss Jarvis cares more about basketball in this film, while in the first one she was admittedly very annoyed at the special treatment of the basketball team. This film is working towards the spring musicale. A noteworthy nod to the first film is the moment Kelsey signs the seniors up for one last thing to do together, which is similar to them meeting in detention. This theatrical moment has the whole class turn towards Kelsey. She slouches in her seat, and Sharpay stomps her toe. Once homeroom shows up in free period to do the musical, they try to drop out with a lingering concern of graduation and the busyness of the upcoming weeks. It is Gabriella that tries to get them to stick with it, and looks at Troy to get them on her side, which he agrees. He does a similar action in the first movie when Gabriella wants him to audition for the Winter Musicale. The central conflict for Troy is theater versus basketball. Troy is considering doing theater in college, which makes Juilliard's interest in him riveting, while his father wants him to go to his alma mater, University of Albuquerque. The fear of the future has lingered throughout the three films. What does Troy want to do past high school? At musical rehearsal, Miss Darbus asks what they want to do in the future. Chad is pretty sure about going to U of A, Taylor wants to be president of the United States, Sharpay mentions center stage and a spotlight on her, and Troy seems unsure what the future holds for him. I Want It All is one of the most theatrical numbers, displaying the fantasy Sharpay has for herself. It is a step above fabulous.
Sharpay's a big fish in a little pond. For her, the cafeteria is the world. And so let's imagine the world, as big as it can get, but still in the cafeteria, in the school.
In the room white. It's just an impression of the cafeteria. Then all of the fantasy elements that she's imagining are vibrant and bright. It becomes like a Broadway stage.
All of her classmates are seen as serving, possibly beneath her in some way, like Gabriella as a maid, Kelsey the taxi driver, even Jason as security. Before this point, there is an obvious distance between Sharpay and Ryan. Some references in I Want It All are to Roxy Hart from Chicago, with Sharpay in a very similar attire. The billboards seem to pay homage to Broadway Melody from Singing in the Rain, and the numerous references to Material Girl by Madonna, which Kenny Ortega choreographed. When the number comes back in the senior spring musical, Ryan is electric, and when Sharpay comes down with an umbrella, this seems to be a nod to Mary Poppins. Can I Have This Dance has been my favorite number for years. Gabriella has a different wardrobe compared to the past two films, as in those films she's mostly wearing blues, pinks, and some reds. In the final film, she's wearing a lot of whites and florals, which she's wearing here. The number seems to be a reference to two different musicals, with the first being An American in Paris, specifically the ballet near the end of the film, with all the flowers in one of the dancing sequences. The second musical is Sound of Music with the song 16 Going on 17. Gabriella teaches Troy how to dance and then it starts raining. This reminds me of their picnic date in High School Musical 2 when the sprinklers go off and they begin dancing. There have been multiple Troy-Gabriella numbers before this point, but this remains my favorite because of the intimacy of it all. Senior year couldn't be complete without a prom number.
Perfect prom. East High puts on the school play about ourselves. So we stage a prom and it's called Night to Remember, and it's just a really fun number of us getting ready and going to prom.
As choreographers, we had to take the viewer on that journey and really dance that story. Just all the things that you do when you get ready for prom, when you go to prom, we wanted to put into that number.
It's the big dance in the film, and I was really proud of the cast in that piece because it was hard, and they really grasped it, and they full-on performed it, and it's dancing. It's not just step touch. It was really amazing to watch.
The dancing was pretty intense. I definitely didn't do that at prom.
Up and drop it, hut, hut, 7, 8.
The dancing is so much harder. I think this is the hardest we've ever had.
Up, down, hut, kick, reach and reach, grab, boom, boom, boom.
It's been like a month and a half, I think, rehearsing, and that's the longest time we've ever been able to rehearse. It's fun.
Whip it, look, whoa.
A Night to Remember reminds me a bit of the barn dance from Seven Brides of Seven Brothers, with the complicated nature of the number. It is extremely particular, especially with the parts where they dance with one another. The costumes were made to reflect the characters.
This is my prom outfit. They made it from scratch.
Kenny had decided he wanted her to look very ethereal and very Midsummer's Night Dream. Her fabric is amazing. This is it. So you can see how everything will flow when she dances. It just all moves.
I loved the colors on it. It had like feathers and flowers, and it was really sweet. It's the last of the material in the world.
Monique is actually a little bit more 50s inspired. She's kind of the conservative character, and so we've given her that edge.
I can't go anywhere without a bow tie. I think it's really cool that we've turned sort of an everyday classy look of like wearing the ties and stuff and put it into a prom dress.
Kenny, our director, has given us a lot of details about how he sees the characters.
I love the fantasy of that, I do. I mean, if you do.
Alicia looked like a little ballerina.
This is all you know, ballerina inspired. We just loved all of the shredding of the fabric, so that way when she does twirl, you'll see more movement.
I loved my dress. Am I ballerina?
She is. And actually, we have used the figure skater mesh that you can see, and because these pieces come to a point in the back. So that way we're able to look like it's all floating on the body. This is Kelsey's coming out party. The song is actually made around her character.
It's gonna be amazing to see everyone all dressed up. Not just the girls though, like the boys too. They have fabulous tuxes. He's wearing pink for me.
The characters are very defined, which is why it was so important to collaborate with the actors on these costumes.
My prom dress was hot pink, obviously.
Originally, we were going to do a ballet cut for her. I think we need to take it up probably about here, maybe? Don't you think?
I kinda like it longer.
You do? All right. And then she wanted it to have a little bit more bling, so that's when we added the Swarovski crystals. Across the back, you realize that they're gonna be crystals hanging all the way across.
Awesome. The start of the
You
prom
like it?
dress. I like it.
Our dresses went with us and they moved with us, and it just creates kind of like a magical feeling that not only we're dancing, our clothes are dancing with us.
A Night to Remember revolves around a significant part of a high school senior's life. Senior prom is this moment in time that people remember forever. In this film, you can tell that Troy tries to tell Chad about his uncertainty with his future and doesn't feel like his future is his future. The generational pressure that Troy feels is apparent, since the first film mentions Troy making the varsity basketball team as a sophomore. Troy's had the weight of the team on his shoulders for years. This leads to a musical number in a junkyard while they're working on the car. The only musical number with just them. The boys are back.
Find a musical opportunity where we could sort of visit Troy and Chad's youth. And so we said, let's create a boys' world. Let's create a place where boys can go wild and where they can be anything they want to be and give them that opportunity within the musical number.
There's something magical about this number, and it goes back to how well Zach and Corbin play off each other. The chemistry from the past 3 years of working together comes off on screen. While working on the car, I couldn't help but think of Greased Lightning from Grease, which became more apparent the moment the teenagers go under the car and became their childhood selves. This happens in Grease as the scenery changes when Danny goes under the car. Once Gabriella leaves, Troy is upset and argues with his father. Basketball is not an escape to his problems. In addition, in the first film, he misses shots when Gabriella is mad at him. He ends up at East High, and that leads to one of the best performances in the franchise, Scream. Scream is about how he doesn't know what he wants to do and the feelings he has is bubbling to the surface, with feeling alone and being unsure about his future. Troy screams at the end, which he does in High School Musical 2 at some point, and this sense of frustration is felt throughout the number, with banging on lockers and tearing down his banner, which is an interesting touch because Gabriella sings to a banner with Troy's face on it during When There Was Me and You. Gabriella's feelings toward the banner was sadness, and of her realizing that basketball and the team will always come first. While with Troy, it was that he doesn't want to put others' needs before his own. The moments that stick out are the basketball bouncing around him and Troy climbing the walls. I can't help but think about Gene Kelly's solo Singing in the Rain. He is playing with the water, happy and in love. While Troy's feeling the opposite emotions, is still creating a fantasy that's playing with levels and space. The two performances end in similar ways, with finding out someone is watching them, with Troy seeing Miss Jarvis. The last few minutes of the film are the Spring Musical and High School Musical. The performance is not met without chaos, unlucky for Sharpay, our villain. Sharpay is shown in all 3 movies in front of mirrors. Mirrors represent how Sharpay cares about herself first and foremost. Throughout the franchise, we've seen mirrors be a place where she lifts herself up, and also where she has the privacy to let her guard down. At the end of the musical, the group is in a line, and we find out Troy is going to UC Berkeley to play basketball and theater, the best of both worlds. When he's looking at Gabriella and he says how many miles away it is from Stanford, I remember there being a collective awe in the theater. After this announcement, Chad is shown to have disappeared, and Troy finds him playing basketball in the arena. There's something about this scene that's beautiful because the gym was their home away from home. Chad and Troy might be going their separate ways, but they'll always be connected. The final High School Musical number closes this emotional chapter.
We all had talked about this day, where we actually see the final curtain come down. And no one knew. We all kind of giggled about it and thought, oh, I'll probably cry, it'll probably be emotional. I don't think any of us realized how emotional.
We grew up together. We lived our lives the past 3.5 years together, so it's a tough goodbye. It's tough. I'm gonna miss everybody.
Very much so.
It is a rather happy number with graduation and Troy saying in his graduation speech how they need to define themselves as they want, referencing stick to the status quo with not being confined to one thing, and says, once a wildcat, always a wildcat. Still to this day, I can't help but feel like he's talking to us. The number references we are all mixed together with how Ryan runs across the stage like he did in the bleachers, and the order of vocal performances. The part where the students make the wildcat seems to reference Busby Berkeley, who played a lot with formation in his numbers like in Variety Show. To conclude, I really like what the cast has to say about High School Musical ending.
I'm just holding on to it. I'm never gonna let it go.